looking at the first 55 days of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in office and some of the policy reforms that he has brought to bear. How is it affecting Nigerians, and where is it leading Nigeria as a country? If you have questions, if you have contributions, and if you have concerns that we can look into this morning, please feel free to head on to Twitter at Spectrum T Online, and we'll take those questions and concerns real time this morning. Of course, we are looking at certain reforms that have been brought to bear by the Tinubu-led administration in the past 55 days. The big blow was on May 29 while he gave his inaugural speech. He had mentioned that subsidy removal had become a thing in the country. And just after that announcement, everything seemed to skyrocket all at the same time. Fuel price hike came on. Now the cost of living has also quadrupled at this time in the country. We've also seen the president bring about several other reforms, deregulation of the electricity sector. We've also seen the Naira being floated in the past 55 days. We've also just talked about the fact that school fees have been upwardly reviewed by these administrations. Several things have been done almost all at the same time. How are Nigerians faring? Good morning, Deyemi Saka. Good to have you on the show this morning. Of course, Deyemi Saka is a public affairs analyst. Glad to be back. Yes, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
How's Lagos State this morning?
Cloudy?
Oh, okay. Wow, and I know that Lagos State is the hub of business activities. With all the realities on ground, floating of the naira, how much the naira is doing against the dollar right now at the market. I think it's 870 something naira as of this morning. And then again, we also have fuel price hike. How is business energy in Lagos?
Well, the truth of the matter is it's not easy. It's not fun. It's bringing about some sort of economic hardship on the conscience of Nigerians. I think it's just about time for Mr. President to address us as a nation. Um, I don't know. I don't want to sound like a prophet of doom, but I don't see exciting times ahead. At least not for the next 6, 8 months.
Mm. Speaking of which, we haven't heard the president give a national speech yet with regards to some of the reforms that he has brought about in the last 50 days. Does that in any way trouble you? I mean, there's been a lot of changes here and there, and Nigerians have been calling out, civil society organizations have been begging. And there is even a funny one that goes around where we had the president saying, allow the poor to breathe. But it seems like the president is not allowing Nigerians to breathe with how much policy reforms is doling out. But does it trouble you that we've not had him address the country yet?
Well, I don't want to sound or come across as being critical of a new administration, but at this point, you expect the president to come out with a persuasive speech. That is what you need right now. That is how you can get the buy-ins of Nigerians into this thing or into his administration and policies and policy trust. I've not seen anything different. I don't know how we like deceiving ourselves in this country. I instead of yes, the people tell you that subsidy have to go, subsidy must go. Yeah, fine. We all agree that it must go. It's a fraudulent regime, but you can't just let Nigerians bear the hardship of the corruption of some few Nigerians. We should bring these people to book. They should probably return or refund what they quote and unquote they loot. Who has conducted an extensive forensic audit of the subsidy regime?
Okay, I hope that network is not getting on
Hello.
the way. Demi, can you hear
I said,
me?
I'm with you.
Okay. Okay.
I
I,
said
um,
nobody.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, I said nobody has conducted a forensic audit of the period you're probably looking at, or probably period in view where you believe Nigerians or the federal government has just been fueling corruption. I will give you an instance. Around January, February last year, the NNPC in its wisdom and obviously pure negligence, imported a large consignment of fuel, which we Nigerians will call contaminated fuel, but they will call it off spec. That product had subsidy paid for. That shows you that there was no quality control. Nobody was sanctioned. A new government came in, did not even sanction anybody. And you are just so quick to push the burden onto Nigerians. It's unfair. We should know at a point the NNPC was claiming Nigerians consume 100 million liters of fuel a day. Or they just gave us a figure. Let's even assume that you buy this, you fill up your tank today. You're probably not going to fill up your tank until the next 2-3 days. So the numbers can't be constant. That is just the elementary investigation. You know that it's not Nigerians conducting or probably involved in this fraud. It's the NNPC and its marketers
Well,
ripping off Nigerians. So why isn't Nigeria you just want Nigerians to bear the burden? When the Russia-Ukraine crisis war started in February 2022, as at August 2022, Saudi Arabia Aramco declared 800 billion naira, $800 billion profit, exceeding even their expectation for the year. And the government says they are going to plow the money back into the society, into the economy for social security and what have you. What did we make? Rather than make money during the Russia, Ukraine, and in the peak of it, we NNPC declared loss.
So we seem to
And
be
you can't
having a
tell me.
problem of minders of our system there. It's just that we have failing structures in the country, JME. Wouldn't you think so?
You see, it is not. You see, it's okay. It is easy for me, or would have been a lot easier for me to believe, because the argument of no pay no gain doesn't sink and doesn't sit with me, because you still look at the cover of Mr. President, you see at an average of 20-25 cars that will be filled up, that will have their tank filled up on taxpayers' money. You still look at the budget of the State House. Yes, the parliament might want to give them the excuse that we're not the one that prepared the budget for 2023. But you could as well come in and give an executive order to reduce it, this budgetary spending in the State House. I can still tell you that you still find something budgeted for software renewal. You still find something budgeted for sporting activities for 2023. You will still find some ridiculous amount budgeted for kitchen utensils and cooking gas. So when you exhibit extreme emotional unintelligence, how do you want Nigerians to believe you? It's unfair on Nigerians. I've just 3 major policies for subsidy. The increment in electricity tariff was brought forward. You came up with student loan.
Yeah.
Sorry, student loan. If you look critically evaluate it, doesn't favor Nigerians.
We also have the issue of floating of the naira. Of course, floating of the naira was readily celebrated by Nigerians when that information came out. But I think a few weeks on, and we are beginning to see where that really puts us, especially for those doing international businesses. The fact that you wake up today, the dollar to naira is a different price every day. The impacts are becoming enormous for Nigerians at this time.
When this is it national Nigeria Bulk Electricity, whatever, embed said they're probably going to adjust the electricity tariff in relative to the exchange rate. You probably should imagine what's going to happen. And for Mr. President during his campaign, that even his supporters claimed he was going to hit the ground running, an average Nigerian believed, assumed that it's a week or two into office, he would have formed his cabinet. 55 days into office for a man that says he's going to hit the ground running. He's just 5 days away from the 60-day mandatory, as mandated by the Constitution, to form a cabinet. All these things has inputs in the economy of the country. Direct investors' confidence and what have you.
Okay, another issue I'd like to raise. Now, let's just look at his 55 days holistically. In some aspects, many see President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to have come in with a sledgehammer on the country, whether it's in the economic sector or those that Nigerians even think that the president is carrying out some forms of vendetta on. Remember that in the course of this 55 days, we've seen him suspend the CBN governor Godwin Emefiele and that of the Economic Financial Crimes Commission, Abdul Rashid Bauer. Now, some people have pointed that out as some form of vendetta. The CBN governor is due to be arraigned sometime this week as part of the information that we have gotten. How do you think that this affects the perception of the president and even his economic reforms? Because certain financial decisions have been recently made. One of the meetings have been held in CBN for the first time in the last 7 years, and Godwin Emefiele was not in attendance.
You see, when we get carried away, or we allow politics or political affiliation to influence our decisions or how we evaluate things, we just play with our sovereignty. I'm not a fan of Godwin Emefiele. Let me put it out there. And I tell people, it was an indictment. Godwin Emefiele being the central bank governor throughout the regime of retired General Muhammadu Buhari is an indictment of his, or probably a contradiction of his fight against corruption, because you cannot claim Emefiele released monies under Jonathan and you came aboard and you retained him for throughout the 8 years of your 8 years of you being in office. Having said that, the CBN is an independent body established by law. The CBN mandate is about the monetary policy or policies of the country. Now the question is, did Emefiele do anything outside the purview of his office? No. If you say the policies were bad on the country's economy, it's under his purview to make policies, whether good or bad, for you to now come and evaluate or jettison such policies. But to reduce the implication it that sends to the global community or international community is like you're telling us that the head of your monetary policy is involved in terrorism, because that was the first thing they were flying around. Only for you to now charge him to call for illegal possession of firearms. That means you brought your secret police, you reduced it to a tool of vendetta or witch hunting. For what reason? Two institutions have been messed up because of that action: the DSS and the CBN. EFCC, Abdulrashid Bauer. Same with. I'm not a fan of Abdulrashid Bauer, but Abdulrashid Bauer has been or suspended, but has not been charged to court. So are you telling us that you dismissed him or you suspended him, kept him somewhere, and not trying to fabricate? Because that's what it seems like. Because if you have a watertight case against him, you should be in court as we speak. There are a lot of allegations against Bauer. Former Governor Zamfara made one. A lot of allegations are flying here and there. You probably should have investigated that, gather enough evidence, and charge him to court. Don't make it look as if it's just about, okay, just want to ease people that are not on your side to put your people on board. We should protect our institutions. Our institutions must be seen to be detached from the whims and caprices of those in office. I wish Nigeria well. I'm a patriot. I love my country. That's the only passport I bear, the green passport. But we should question our leaders. We should always, critique what they do for the interest of the country.
Well, this is a lot at the same time happening for us in the country. Now, something else that is a matter of concern is in the midst of subsidy removal, the cash crunch that came and went, and the impact that it had on businesses all over the country. We're also looking at about the fact that the Tinubu-led administration has not come forward to tell us how they intend to manage labor, because as a result of these, people are losing businesses. Some businesses are taking out workers in the midst. But we've seen the NLC and the TUC come off last week to say they are even going to pull out of the table of negotiation with the federal government on the premise of this subsidy removal. And they're also asking that the federal government considers a 200% increment in minimum wage and other benefits for workers. Where do you think that these policies, as reformed and as doled out by the Tinubu-led administration, is placing the labor force in Nigeria at this time? Last week, certain unions in the country have already said they are going to cut down their working days between 2 and 3 days to be able to combat the effects of fuel price hike.
To you, the union or the trade union goes to the table demanding for increment of the minimum wage, which obviously should have an increase, like in line with the existing laws. Trust me, there'll be job cuts, and it's still going to take us back to or back to square one, or back to the beginning.
You're saying that if we increase the salaries, that if minimum wages increase, we are going to also experience job cuts. Is that what you're
But
saying?
we want to hold on to this old wage, and we keep that. We don't lay off people, or we increase and we lay off people. That's going to be what's going to happen. And at that point, you find out that the labor will probably be held hostage or probably held at ransom. That is one. Secondly, you want to ask yourself, what you see? I don't. That's one thing I advise. I advised against, or probably has been my sentiments or my fears. We should be careful appoint probably electing and promoting people that we've created a mosaic, or probably a mosaic status out of them. It seems to get away with a lot of things. The same thing happened with General with Muhammadu Buhari, for President Muhammadu Buhari, because we made a messiah out of him. And at that point, we pressurized. We made Nigerians, not all of us, but most Nigerians, suppressed national interest and institution just to believe that he can do no wrong. We all headed the same path with Bola Ahmed Tinubu. People will cult hero as that cult followership in government is dangerous to the country and institutions. I pray the love and the interest of Nigerians and Nigeria, is so much in Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that it probably will make it will work for the country. I won't get carried away with that cult followership it commands among Nigerians. Because the truth, we can't talk about Nigeria moving forward. We don't look at the exchange rate and what have you. These are things that would determine even the price of bread. The A bag of sachet water has jumped from 150 to 250, in some places 300 naira. Bear with. And these are the reality we will live with. So I don't see anything changing unless they come up with a plan to they can bring once the exchanges start coming down, and we have to earn more. We have to earn more foreign exchange, and that's the truth. But how do we earn more? The only thing we're relying on is oil for now. Maybe there's a way it's going to tell us that it wants to bring all the other natural resources, the gold in Zamfara, whatever, and across the country to ensure of the earnings and for the good of Nigerians. That's the only way out for me. But if you're relying on oil, we still want to make more, because the more dollar we earn, the more it's good for the government. So the government will even want the dollar to go up because it makes it earn more.
So are you saying that the naira per dollar as it continues to go up, that it's in the economic advantage of the country at this time, so that we are
It's
experiencing more
it's
foreign direct investment?
it sounds great for us on paper that we are earning more, because if a dollar, I'm just saying, not that I'm not a prophet of doom. If the dollar should go as high as 1,000 naira to a dollar, if we earn $10 billion, you probably knows that it's more in naira on paper. That's the paper value. But if you now look at the other indices, the price purchasing parity, or the purchasing power of Nigeria, or purchasing power of the naira, you realize that it has reduced.
Mm. Okay, so something else this morning, Jeremy. Just crisscrossing, because we are talking about how much impact of these policy reforms Nigerians are having to grapple with at the same time. So it's like, you wake up today. This is Monday, and it's a new business week. Nigerians are more like, okay, what are we going to be hearing new? But
I
over
didn't
the
get that.
weekend, we received information as to the fact that school fees have been increased for unity schools from 45,000 naira to 100,000 naira. And we're also seeing that for certain tertiary institutions also, their school fees have gone up. Now, we've had a guest this morning that explains that this is to be expected as a result of the subsidy removal, that everything else will go up. But we are also asking, all of these things in place, how are we going to move forward as a society? Looking at the fact that we've just talked about the fact that minimum wage has not changed, and you have asserted that even if minimum wage is to be increased, some people are still going to be losing their jobs on this. What are your thoughts about this school fees increment at this time?
No, I think the first thing the government and all arms of government should do, it they should demonstrate enormous sensitivity to the plight of Nigerians. This is not the time for the National Assembly to be proposing 70 billion naira renovation, or whatever wardrobe allowances. This is not the time for you to just want to go on the streets of Abuja and you see the cover of Mr. President and you see 20, 30 cars. You probably want to see the budget of the State House or the presidency, and you keep asking yourself, why are we the one tightening our belt, and why are they loosening their belt because they are getting bigger or fatter? These are the things Nigerians want to see. And moving forward, we should move away from tokenism. We increase this to push through money at the people and what have you. The first thing I was expecting is, before you want to remove subsidy, you should have built up, or probably increased, or establish a refining capacity that gives you a competitive and comparative advantage in the market. Even if it's just 10 naira, 30 naira differential you get by being an active player in the market, it's something. It gives people a breather. You can't just say government doesn't have business in business and you're in the business of governance. We
Mm.
should look beyond that. I pray, and the first thing we need as Nigerians is Mr. President should come out and address Nigerians and tell us how he wants to get us out of this hardship. A bag of rice have jumped up from 36 naira to for 2,000 naira, depending on where you're buying it from. And
Well,
there's more, and there's a policy. Okay, now we foreign remittance should be paid in naira. Yes, over time policy will be good. It push for demand for naira and probably increase the strength of the naira. But for the next 2 3 months, it's still going to be the rush for dollar, because the people want to hold the dollar because they still want the dollar to have its value.
some
So
argument that
for us to give naira the strength, sorry, for us to give naira to make naira gain strength, we should increase our exports and foreign earnings. You should find a way to increase it. Maybe we're going to increase the number of barrels per day we sell. Maybe we are going to increase on other source of foreign earnings. We just need to do that.
Hmm. I
With
see.
them, we can now look at industrialization.
And then we can now look at industrialization. I see your emphasis on foreign direct investment here, and I think it's a good one. But let's still lean on these school fees increments by the federal government upward review. Reno Mokri, gave some statistics this morning that is troubling on Twitter, and he's saying that the average tuition fees at Nigerian public universities is 50,000 naira, which stands at $65. And now he began to enumerate, institutional fees in other countries of the world and comparing it as to why Nigerians should not necessarily feel the pinch. I mean, he's saying if you compare it comparatively with other nations of the world, we are paying minimally for education. But the argument is, what's the minimum wage in all these other countries? What's the strength of their education sectors? You can't just come out and argue that the federal government is in their right to increase school fees when we have a lot of things that is wrong in the education sectors. So there, man, I'm asking you this morning, as opposed to cost of education in other countries, because I mean some people are trying to say we shouldn't cry foul for the increments because it's in the right of way. What do you think about this particular argument?
Well, let me say this. I've always been a fan and an advocate that the federal government cannot keep subsidizing education because whether we like it or not, yes, our education is heavily subsidized. But the as the sad part of it is the subsidy is not you're not seeing a reflection of the subsidy on the education itself as a sector. Having said that, I probably want to take I'm not proud without directly taking on Reno Mokri. He listed out all these countries and what have you, but he failed to realize that there are other support systems that makes the students and the family to pull through such, paying such tuition. In United Kingdom, you cited that as an example. As a student, you're entitled to some hours. You could work as a student. There's an existing financial package, student loan, for you to access. A lot of Americans have not even paid up their student loan, but it's still there. Do we have that in Nigeria for you? See, when you want to compare things, be fair with your comparison, when your parameters you're comparing with. An average parent in America is not waiting for his child to finish school and start taking care of him or her. Because there's a system for old people. But in Nigeria, your parents are slaving and working so hard to send you to become something, and you're like you're their retirement package because they worked. Why they were there instead of spending the bulk of their resources or earnings on themselves, they using it to train you for the future. So how do you want to tell a man that is 80% of what he has is earning to train his child to now to just tell him that you have to even apart from the after spending your 100% earnings, you have to get into debt to see your child through school. And where are the opportunities there? We talked about the free markets. Other countries about see them having free markets where entrepreneurs could. We talk in Nigeria, the free market is on paper. There's a high level of intellectual property theft in Nigeria, even by government officials. The market doesn't work. You are not allowed to thrive. In fact, it's like they give you a cake, and the next thing they are coming with they are sending the something to take away the cake from you, or even take away even your curry you have at home.
Mm. The troubling times, we must say. But Demi, just so that we can round off this conversation this morning, the president has asked that Nigerians should please bear with him and suffer the pain for a little bit more, as this policy. Some quarters are saying that by 2024 January, we'll begin to see the yieldings of some of these policy reforms.
Sorry to butt in, please. Which pain or what pain is the president and his family and anybody in his cabinet have gone through since 1999? None.
Yeah, so you
He
can
was the
just give
governor
us your
from
concluding
1999 to
thoughts with regards to
2007.
that. You can give us your
I'm serious.
concluding thoughts.
No, he's been the governor from was governor of Lagos State 1999 to 2007. He's been on pension by Lagos State government. They're taking care of him, whatever, in any form, in any way, from 2007 to 2023. He's not the commander in chief. The state is picking his bills. That with his family.
His wife is a
Same
former
with his
senator of the
aides.
Federal Republic.
So it's like, so what? So what? Which pain? Okay, you want to? Are you in the pain with us? You're not. If you don't know what I'm experiencing, how can you find? How can you provide succor?
So what will be your recommendations this morning as we wrap this up?
It should actually subject itself to a degree of pains that we are going through, to some degree of pains that we are experiencing. So it probably will make him fast track his actions or reactions.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Saka, for coming on Rise and Shine this morning. We appreciate you sharing your time and your wealth of knowledge on these issues. Of course, we were x-raying the past 55 days of the Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration and some of his policy reforms and where they are putting Nigerians. Thank you for coming on the show this morning. It's been a great time talking with you this morning.
You're welcome.